Hello. So, I just want to ask the audience just one question. Are you familiar with the phrase, know thyself? This is a phrase that has been echoed in society since the time of Socrates, intended to encourage deep self-examination and reflection. It urges us to question our beliefs and values, reminding us not only to care for our outward appearance and mind, but for ourselves, our memories, identity, and sense of self. At its core, it repeatedly asks one of the most universal, enduring questions. Who am I? Are we defined by the decisions that we make or by the ones that we avoid? Or are we simply society's stereotypes that they place upon us? Or are we something far more complex, layered, and entirely our own? These questions are not only philosophical ones, they are explored powerfully in this very artwork today. Negative, created in 1988. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the great honor of introducing you not only to this remarkable piece of artwork, but also this extraordinary artist behind it, whose life and personal journey demonstrate a powerful commitment to truth, emotion, and political self-expression. Lesley Sanderson. She is an artist in both visual and experimental sense, someone who shapes her work through her thoughts, struggles, and lived realities. Through her practice, Sanderson does not offer easy answers. Instead, she invites us to confront our own identities, ultimately leading us back to that same timeless question, who am I? Born in 1962 in Malaysia, Sanderson grew up surrounded by a vibrant, culturally complex environment through her Malaysian mother and British father. From an early age, she learnt what it felt like to exist between two worlds, never fully one thing or another, but something entirely unique and personal to her. This created emotional tension in which belonging was uncertain and constantly questioned, shaping how she viewed herself and how she is seen by others. At the age of 11, she moved to the United Kingdom, a disruptive transition that forced her to adapt quickly to a harsh environment, unfamiliar climate, and a highly demanding education system that expected rapid assimilation. Settling in Sheffield in her teenage years, Sanderson developed a deep and intense love for art, which became a crucial outlet for processing her displacement, pressure, and... Sorry guys, I'm a bit nervous today. Art allowed her to communicate what not always could be spoken, turning emotion into a visual language. This experience of living between two cultures later became central to her practice, informing her focus on identity, fragmentation, and power. These experiences also connect her to a wider feminist political art movement that challenges who is allowed to be visible, heard, and understood. Her work is included in Women in Revolt art activism in the UK from 1970 to 1990, shown in Tate Britain from 2023 to 2024. This landmark exhibition celebrated feminist artists who resisted patriarchal systems and questioned their roles imposed on them. Within this context, Sanderson's work aligns strongly with artists such as Lubiana Himid and Sonia Boyce, who also use their bodies and histories to confront race, gender, and representation. Like them, Sanderson places herself at the center of her work, asserting control over how she is seen, refusing to be defined by stereotypes and the way she is portrayed in society. Her identity as a woman of color becomes not something hidden, but something politically and artistically powerful. In recent years, Sanderson's practice has also shifted through her collaboration with her partner Neil, a white male artist. This introduces a new dynamic to her work, raising fresh questions about power, authorship, and selfhood. It suggests that her exploration of selfhood is not fixed but evolving, just as identity itself is. This development invites us to consider whether self-representation changes when it becomes shared, and how relationships shape the way we see ourselves. Throughout her career, Sanderson has explored the inner conflicts that shape human identity using paint, pencil, and mixed media. She asked the viewers not only to look at her images, but to reflect on themselves. Her work engages with the psychological and emotional aspects of identity, encouraging us to think about how we are shaped by society, memory, and expectation. In this sense, her art speaks to not something spiritually in a religious way, but in a deep emotional, psychological way that makes us question what it means to be human. The work that has moved me today the most is this piece, Negative, created in 1988. The pencil piece incorporates red stamping and photocopy techniques, combining delicate hand-drawn imagery with harsh mechanical reproduction. The work depicts Sanderson's body fragmented into 3 vertical columns, each divided into 4 sections. Parts of her body, such as her head, torso, and feet, are separated and surrounded by repeated photocopies of her face. With each repetition, the stamps multiply, creating a growing sense of visual pressure and emotional intensity. The materials themselves carry meaning, the pencil intimate and vulnerable, suggesting something personal and closely connected to the artist's hands and body. In contrast, the photocopied images feel impersonal and industrial, stripping away individuality. The red stamps appear aggressive and intrusive, as though Sanderson's identity is being labelled, judged, and controlled. Together, these elements create a sense of claustrophobia, reflecting on how society imposes rigid categories onto women of colour. The 3 columns mirror Sanderson's experience with being split between cultures and expectations. The fragmentation reflects how people often present different versions of themselves in different spaces in order to survive. Displayed at eye level at Leeds Art Gallery, the work confronts the viewer directly, removing emotional distance and forcing us to engage with Sanderson as a real person and not just as an abstract idea. When I stood before it, I felt drawn closer. Studying the marks and repeated faces, it made me feel how we sometimes divide ourselves into safer versions to avoid judgment. Negative shows that identity is not singular, but layered, fragile, and constantly negotiated. The smiling face in her work complicates its title. Rather than being passive, the smile becomes defiant. A refusal to accept negative labels imposed on her, it transforms vulnerability into resistance. I relate to this deeply, as I have often felt divided between who I am and who I am expected to be. Like Sanderson's repeated images, I felt myself copied into versions that seem more acceptable. Her work reminds me that this fragmentation does not mean weakness, and it can be a source of awareness, resilience, and knowledge. Ultimately, Sanderson's artwork, Negative, shows us to know oneself is not fixed, but to recognize many versions of ourselves that exist under pressure, memory, and expectation, not under societal conformity. In doing so, Sanderson leaves us with not an answer, but a challenge to reclaim our identities and the forces that try to define them for us. Thank you for listening.